She hadn't touched a fighter jet in 8 years. The nightmares had finally stopped. Her hands no longer shook during thunderstorms, and she'd learned to sleep without checking for surface-to-air missiles until her phone rang with a call from NORAD. "Colonel Martinez, we need you airborne in 20 minutes. Maria Martinez's ranch house alarm clock read 4:47 when the phone started ringing. In 8 years of living on 80 acres of Montana rangeland, she had received exactly 3 calls before sunrise. This one would change everything. To her neighbors, Maria was the quiet woman who flew crop dusting runs with mechanical precision, maintained her equipment with obsessive care, and never seemed to need help with anything. She paid her bills in cash, kept to herself, and had the kind of steady competence that made ranchers nod approvingly when her name came up. What they didn't know was that Colonel Maria Martinez, call sign Viper, had been the most decorated fighter pilot of her generation. 142 combat missions, 31 confirmed air-to-air kills, Congressional Medal of Honor recipient, the pilot who had single-handedly turned the tide in 3 separate conflicts that the American public would never hear about. The transition from military to civilian life had been carefully planned and deliberately obscure. After 16 years of flying the world's most advanced fighter aircraft in combat zones across 4 continents, Maria had requested immediate retirement following an incident over Yemen that officially never happened. Her ranch house was a study in deliberate simplicity. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen with a table for one, and a living room with a single chair positioned to face the window overlooking her airstrip. No television, no internet, just a radio that picked up weather reports and cattle prices from stations as far away as Billings. Flying crop dusters had been therapeutic in ways military psychologists couldn't have predicted. The low, slow flights over endless wheat fields provided meditation that helped quiet the part of her mind that still scanned for incoming missiles. "This is Maria." She answered the phone without checking the caller ID. "Colonel Martinez, this is General Patricia Hayes, NORAD. I need to speak with you immediately about a developing situation." General Hayes had been her wing commander during the classified operations that ended Maria's military career. If Hayes was calling personally, the situation was beyond serious. "General, I'm retired. You know that. I know Maria. Under normal circumstances, I would never make this call. But we have a situation requiring your specific expertise, and we have a very limited window to respond." Maria walked to her window and looked out at the pre-dawn darkness covering her fields. 8 years of peaceful mornings were about to end. What kind of situation? At 0400 hours, radar stations detected 8 unidentified aircraft penetrating U.S. airspace. The aircraft are using advanced stealth technology that makes them nearly invisible to standard detection systems. They're moving south toward major population centers. Maria's military training took over before her civilian reluctance could object. How many aircraft, configuration, and apparent mission? 8 aircraft flying in formation, speed and altitude consistent with advanced fighters. Flight path suggests reconnaissance for a larger operation, possibly preparing coordinated strikes against infrastructure targets. Maria understood immediately which bases are responding. "That's the problem, Maria. The aircraft are using technology that makes them extremely difficult to track and engage. Our F-22s can't get reliable locks, and missile systems are having trouble maintaining target acquisition. We need someone who can engage using visual identification and manual targeting. You need someone who can dogfight. We need someone who can outfly whatever technology they're using. We need Viper." Maria closed her eyes. For 8 years, she had successfully avoided thinking about air-to-air combat, supersonic engagement protocols, and the specific skills that had made her legendary. Now, those skills were being requested for what sounded like the defense of the continental United States. "General, you know why I retired. You know what happened over Yemen." "I know, Maria. I wouldn't ask if we had any other option. The aircraft will reach major population centers in approximately 4 hours. We need you airborne in 20 minutes. Maria walked to her closet and looked at the garment bag she hadn't opened in 8 years. Inside was her flight suit, helmet, and gear she had worn during 142 combat missions. She had kept it not out of nostalgia, but because some part of her had always known this call might come. "Where do you need me?" "Malmstrom Air Force Base, Montana. We're sending a helicopter to your location. ETA 12 minutes. Maria began the preparation routine she had performed hundreds of times, but never expected to need again. Flight suit, boots, gear bag with backup equipment. She walked to the barn and started the tractor, then drove to the highest point on her property where she had installed a navigation beacon. 8 minutes later, a UH-60 Blackhawk appeared over the tree line. Master Sergeant Rodriguez helped her aboard and handed her a classified briefing tablet during the flight to Malmstrom. 8 unidentified aircraft, designated Ghost Flight, had penetrated U.S. airspace using stealth technology more advanced than anything in current threat databases. Their flight profiles suggested pilot training equivalent to the world's best military aviators. Standard intercept protocols had failed completely. "Colonel, General Hayes wants you to know this isn't a standard intercept mission," Rodriguez explained. "The aircraft you'll be flying has been modified specifically for this engagement." Maria studied the technical specifications. It wasn't a standard F-35. It was a prototype designed for situations exactly like this. Manual targeting systems, simplified electronics, enhanced maneuverability. Designed to be flown by instinct and experience rather than computer assistance. General Hayes was waiting when the helicopter landed at Malmstrom. "Maria, Ghost Flight is currently 200 miles north of Denver, maintaining course toward the south. We estimate they'll reach major population centers in 3 hours." Hayes led Maria toward the modified fighter where Chief Master Sergeant Williams supervised final preparations. Maria conducted pre-flight inspection with methodical thoroughness. Every system, every connection, every component that could mean the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. "Rules of engagement," Maria asked as she completed her inspection. "Intelligence suggests these are American pilots using stolen or hijacked technology. Confirm hostile intent before engaging. But if they make any move toward populated areas, you have authorization to use any necessary force." Maria climbed into the cockpit and began the startup sequence she had performed thousands of times. Despite 8 years away from military aviation, the skills returned immediately. The aircraft responded with precision and power that reminded her why she had chosen flying as her profession. "Tower, this is Viper requesting immediate takeoff clearance." "Viper, you are cleared for takeoff." "Good hunting, Colonel." At 30,000 feet, Maria leveled off and began scanning for Ghost Flight. The radar showed intermittent contacts, but nothing consistent enough for reliable tracking. She would have to find them visually and engage using skills that had made her legendary. 20 minutes into the flight, Maria spotted them. 8 aircraft flying in tight formation, 50 miles ahead and slightly below her altitude. They were sleek, angular, and moved with precision that suggested highly skilled pilots. As she closed the distance, Maria could see they were advanced military aircraft, but their configuration was unlike anything in the current American inventory. "NORAD control, this is Viper. I have visual contact with Ghost Flight." "Viper, you are authorized to attempt communication before engaging." Maria switched to emergency frequency. "Unidentified aircraft. This is U.S. Air Force Viper. You have entered restricted airspace without authorization. Identify yourself immediately and comply with vectors for escort to the nearest military base." The response came immediately in clear English with an American accent. "Viper, this is Ghost Leader. We know who you are. We've been waiting for you." Maria felt her blood run cold. This wasn't a random incursion or mistaken navigation. This was a deliberate challenge directed specifically at her. "Ghost Leader, you are ordered to comply with intercept procedures immediately." "Negative, Viper, we have business to finish. Consider this personal invitation to settle an old score." Maria understood immediately. This wasn't about terrorism or foreign threats. This was about the incident over Yemen 8 years ago. The classified engagement that had ended her military career. NORAD control, this is Viper. Be advised, this appears to be a personal challenge. Ghost flight appears connected to previous classified operations. Regardless of motivation, they represent a clear threat to civilian populations. You're authorized to engage if they continue toward populated areas. Maria watched as Ghost flight began descending and turned toward the south, directly toward Denver. Whatever their objective, they were committed to a course that would bring them over major population centers within an hour. Ghost leader, last warning. Turn away from populated areas immediately or I will engage. Viper, you should have stayed retired. Some ghosts don't rest easy. Ghost leader suddenly broke formation and climbed rapidly toward Maria's altitude, while the other 7 aircraft continued toward Denver. Classic challenge move. Force the intercepting pilot to choose between engaging the challenger or protecting civilians threatened by the formation. Maria made her choice in less than 2 seconds. This is Viper engaging Ghost leader. Request additional aircraft to intercept the remaining Ghost flight. Maria rolled inverted and dove toward Ghost leader, who was climbing aggressively to meet her. The engagement began at a combined closure rate over 1,000 miles per hour, requiring split-second timing and precision that few pilots in the world could manage. Ghost leader's aircraft was fast and maneuverable, but Maria quickly realized that whoever was flying it was good, but not exceptional. They had technical skill and advanced equipment, but lacked combat experience and instinctive decision-making that had made Maria legendary. The dogfight lasted 3 minutes and covered 30 miles of sky. Maria used every technique from 16 years of air-to-air combat, forcing Ghost leader into increasingly desperate maneuvers until she achieved the position advantage she needed. Ghost leader, you're in my sights. Surrender immediately or I will fire. Viper, you can't shoot down an American pilot. Watch me. Maria fired a warning shot that passed within 10 feet of Ghost leader's aircraft. The message was clear. Surrender or be destroyed. Ghost leader's aircraft suddenly went into an uncontrolled spin and began losing altitude rapidly. The pilot ejected safely at 15,000 feet. Ghost leader is down. Pilot ejected safely. Continuing pursuit of remaining aircraft. Maria turned south and advanced the throttles to maximum power. The 7 remaining aircraft had significant head start, but her modified F-35 was faster than anything currently flying. She caught up with Ghost flight just north of the Denver metropolitan area. The 7 aircraft were flying in attack formation, apparently preparing to conduct some kind of demonstration against ground targets. Ghost flight, this is Viper. You are ordered to land immediately at the nearest military facility. Negative, Viper. We have a message to deliver. Maria assessed the situation quickly. 7 hostile aircraft approaching a city of 3 million people, refusing lawful orders, apparently intent on some kind of attack or demonstration. Rules of engagement were clear. Ghost flight is approaching Denver with apparent hostile intent, requesting authorization for defensive engagement. Viper, you're authorized to use any necessary force to protect civilian populations. The aerial battle that followed would later be classified at the highest levels and removed from all official records. Maria engaged 7 skilled pilots flying advanced aircraft in a running fight that covered 200 square miles of airspace above Colorado and Wyoming. Using tactics developed over 16 years of combat flying, Maria systematically forced each aircraft into defensive positions where she could disable them without causing fatal crashes. Her enhanced F-35 moved through the enemy formation like a predator among prey, each engagement calculated for maximum effectiveness with minimal collateral damage. The first aircraft fell to a precision missile strike that damaged its engine without destroying the cockpit. The pilot ejected over empty rangeland. The second tried to flee north, but Maria's superior speed allowed her to force it into a canyon, where the pilot chose ejection over certain crash. 4 of the 7 pilots ejected safely when their aircraft were damaged beyond flyable condition. The 7th pilot chose to crash his aircraft in an empty field rather than be captured. Ghost flight has been neutralized. All aircraft down. 6 pilots recovered alive. Viper, outstanding work. You are cleared to return to Malmstrom. The debriefing lasted 6 hours and involved officials from the FBI, CIA, and military intelligence agencies that Maria couldn't identify. The captured pilots were revealed to be former military aviators recruited by a domestic extremist organization with access to classified aircraft technology. Their plan had been to conduct a demonstration flight over Denver, buzzing major landmarks and government buildings to show that American air defenses could be penetrated at will. It was a psychological operation rather than a direct attack, but could have caused panic and casualties if successful. Colonel Martinez, the FBI investigator, concluded, "Your actions today prevented what could have been a catastrophic blow to public confidence in national security." General Hayes walked Maria to the flight line, where the helicopter waited to return her to her ranch. "Maria, I can't order you back to active duty, but your country needs pilots with your capabilities. What if we could offer you a consulting position, training next generation, developing tactics for unconventional threats, staying ready for situations like today?" Maria considered the offer while looking at the aircraft that had carried her through the mission. She had proven to herself that her skills remained sharp and that she could still perform under pressure, but she had also been reminded of the stress and responsibility that came with those capabilities. "Let me think about it, General. Right now, I want to go home and check on my wheat." 3 weeks later, Maria received a consultant contract from the Department of Defense, allowing her to train military pilots in advanced tactics while maintaining civilian status and residence in Montana. The arrangement required 2 weeks per year at various military installations, plus availability for emergencies. Maria signed a contract and mailed it back the same day. She had found a way to serve her country without abandoning the peaceful life she had built. 6 months later, Maria Martinez was still flying crop dusting missions every morning. But now, she also spent time at Air Force bases, teaching young pilots advanced tactics and decision-making skills that had made her legendary. She had learned that retirement didn't mean abandoning expertise. It meant finding sustainable ways to share that expertise with people who would carry the mission forward. The ranch house remained simple and peaceful, but now it also contained a secure communication system that would allow NORAD to reach her immediately if another situation like Ghost Flight ever developed. The FBI investigation revealed the full scope of the domestic extremist operation. The captured pilots belonged to a shadowy network called the Patriot Liberation Front, led by disillusioned former military officers who believed the federal government had betrayed its founding principles. They had spent 3 years acquiring advanced aircraft through a complex web of defense contractors and black market dealers. Agent Sarah Thompson briefed Maria on the investigation's findings. "Colonel, this organization had infiltrated multiple defense facilities. They possessed detailed intelligence on air defense systems, pilot training protocols, and emergency response procedures. Your intervention prevented not just a psychological attack, but exposed a network that posed ongoing threats to national security. The stolen aircraft had been modified with experimental stealth technology developed by a rogue defense contractor. The company's CEO, former Air Force Colonel James Mitchell, had been selling classified upgrades to the highest bidder. His arrest led to the discovery of similar sales to foreign intelligence services and terrorist organizations. Intelligence analysis showed the Denver operation was intended as a proof of concept. If successful, the group planned to sell their capabilities to hostile nations seeking to demonstrate American vulnerability. The psychological impact of unidentified aircraft buzzing major cities would have undermined public confidence in military protection while advertising their services to international buyers. Maria learned that Ghost Leader, the pilot she had defeated, was Captain Derek Hayes, her former wingman from the Yemen operation. His capture during that classified mission had resulted in torture and psychological conditioning that turned him against his former country. The personal challenge had been revenge for what he perceived as abandonment by his squadron and government. The Yemen incident had haunted Maria for 8 years. Her decision to prioritize civilian evacuation over teammate rescue had saved hundreds of lives, but cost her 3 squadron members. Hayes' survival and recruitment by extremists proved that some operational consequences extended far beyond immediate mission parameters. His capture provided closure Maria hadn't realized she needed. The extremist network stretched across 12 states with cells in major metropolitan areas. FBI raids conducted simultaneously with Maria's aerial engagement netted 47 additional conspirators and prevented coordinated attacks on infrastructure targets nationwide. Maria spent 2 weeks considering the Pentagon's offer. The consulting position would provide meaningful work using her expertise while allowing her to maintain the peaceful ranch life she had built. But it also meant accepting responsibility for training pilots who might face the same impossible choices that had defined her military career. She walked her property each evening, considering the weight of the decision. The wheat fields stretched endlessly toward the Montana horizon, providing the kind of serene perspective that clarified complex choices. Her crop dusting work fed families and supported local agriculture. The consulting role would prepare pilots to defend those same families when agricultural concerns became secondary to national survival. General Hayes called personally to discuss the arrangement. Maria, we're not asking you to return to active duty or relocate to Washington. This would be 2 weeks annually at various training facilities, plus emergency availability for situations requiring your specific expertise. You would develop curriculum for unconventional threat response and advanced aerial tactics. The emergency availability clause concerned her most. The Ghost Flight incident had proven that retirement didn't guarantee freedom from military responsibilities. Her unique skills created obligations that transcended personal preferences when American lives were threatened. Accepting the consulting role would formalize what had already become inevitable. Maria visited the local VFW post to discuss the decision with other veterans who had struggled with similar choices. Master Sergeant Rodriguez, now retired from his helicopter crew duties, offered perspective based on 30 years of military service. Colonel, some skills are too valuable to society to remain permanently unused. The question isn't whether you'll be called upon again, but whether you'll be officially prepared to respond effectively. The financial compensation was significant but not decisive. Maria's ranch generated sufficient income for her simple lifestyle. The true value lay in maintaining connections with active military personnel and staying current on evolving threats and technologies. Isolation had benefits, but also created dangerous knowledge gaps that could prove fatal during emergencies. She drafted her acceptance letter on a Tuesday morning while watching her crop duster aircraft receive routine maintenance. The parallel between maintaining civilian equipment and preserving military readiness seemed appropriate. Both required consistent attention to prevent catastrophic failures when performance mattered most. Maria signed the consultant contract and mailed it back the same day. The arrangement specified 2 weeks annual training duty at rotating Air Force installations, development of curriculum for advanced threat response, and availability for emergency consultation when conventional tactics proved inadequate. She would maintain civilian status while providing expertise that could save pilot lives during unconventional encounters. Her first assignment came 6 weeks later at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. The facility's advanced training ranges provided ideal environments for teaching young pilots the kind of improvisational skills that had made her legendary. Maria found herself standing before 24 eager aviators who represented the future of American air superiority. The pilots were technically proficient but lacked experience with opponents who ignored standard engagement protocols. Maria's curriculum focused on adaptive thinking rather than memorized procedures. Good morning. I'm Colonel Martinez, call sign Viper. For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to teach you how to win fights against enemies who don't follow the rules you learned in flight school. She began with scenario-based training that replicated the Ghost Flight engagement. Students flew against simulated opponents using unconventional tactics, experimental aircraft, and psychological warfare techniques designed to disrupt normal decision-making processes. The exercises revealed gaps in traditional training that could prove fatal during real encounters. Lieutenant Sarah Chun struggled with an exercise involving multiple aircraft attacking civilian areas while challenging individual pilots to personal combat. Colonel Martinez, standard doctrine calls for protecting civilians first, but the personal challenges are obviously designed to divide our attention. How do we maintain tactical effectiveness while avoiding psychological manipulation? Maria smiled, recognizing the same analytical thinking that had served her during the ghost flight incident. Excellent question, Lieutenant. The key is understanding that unconventional opponents rely on conventional responses. They expect you to follow standard procedures even when those procedures work against mission success. Sometimes protecting civilians requires engaging the psychological threat directly. The training emphasized decision-making under extreme pressure, resource management during extended engagements, and maintenance of situational awareness when electronic systems failed or provided conflicting information. Students learned to trust instruments while preparing for moments when only experience and instinct could guide them safely through impossible situations. 6 months after signing the consultant contract, Maria Martinez maintained her dual existence with remarkable success. Her Montana ranch remained the center of her world, with crop dusting flights providing daily connection to the peaceful agricultural life she had built. But now those routine flights were punctuated by periodic departures for military training assignments that kept her skills sharp and her knowledge current. The balance proved more sustainable than she had anticipated. 2 weeks at Nellis Air Force Base teaching advanced tactics, followed by months of quiet ranch work. Emergency consultation calls were rare, but meaningful, usually involving analysis of foreign aircraft capabilities or development of training scenarios based on emerging threats. Her expertise remained available without dominating her daily routine. Local farmers had noticed subtle changes in her demeanor without understanding their significance. Maria carried herself with renewed confidence, her movements reflecting someone who had rediscovered purpose beyond simple survival. The isolation that had once protected her from painful memories now served as rejuvenating retreat between periods of intense military engagement. Her secure communication system connected her to a network of military professionals who relied on her insights for strategic planning. Weekly briefings kept her informed about global aviation developments, while monthly consultations provided opportunities to influence policy decisions that affected pilot safety and national security. She had become an unofficial bridge between operational reality and institutional planning. The crop dusting work took on new meaning as Maria recognized parallels between agricultural precision and military effectiveness. Both required attention to detail, adaptation to changing conditions, and understanding that small errors could produce catastrophic consequences. Her civilian aviation skills have been enhanced by military consultation work, just as her military expertise was informed by peaceful agricultural operations. Ranch neighbors occasionally spotted unfamiliar aircraft landing on her private airstrip, military helicopters arriving for equipment delivery or personnel transport. The visits generated curiosity, but no concern among people who respected privacy and understood that some questions were better left unasked. Maria's reputation for competence and reliability transcended any mystery about her connections. She found satisfaction in training young pilots who might never face combat, but would be prepared if circumstances demanded extraordinary performance. Her students carried lessons learned from the ghost flight engagement back to their squadrons, spreading tactical knowledge that could prove invaluable during future emergencies. Maria Martinez had discovered that true service meant being prepared to answer the call, while building a life worth protecting in quiet moments between crises. The woman who had once been deemed unfit for real combat missions had become the instructor teaching others how to accomplish the impossible. Sometimes the system was wrong about what people could achieve when they refused to accept artificial boundaries. And sometimes proving the system wrong meant saving lives in the process. The ranch continued its seasonal rhythms, with wheat planting and harvest providing structure to her civilian existence. But now those agricultural cycles were complemented by military training schedules that kept her connected to the broader mission of national defense. She had learned that retirement didn't mean abandoning expertise. It meant finding sustainable ways to share that expertise with people who would carry the mission forward. Some skills were too valuable to be permanently retired, but they could be preserved and passed on through teaching rather than constant operational deployment. The farmhouse remained simple and peaceful, but now it also contained reminders of her continued service. Flight manuals mixed with agricultural journals, secure communication equipment alongside weather monitoring systems, military awards displayed next to farming achievement certificates. Maria hoped the emergency communication system would never be necessary again, but she was ready if called upon. Sometimes the most important battles are fought by people who have earned a right to choose peace, but remain willing to defend it when necessary. Sometimes the best pilots are those who have learned to value the ground as much as the sky. She had discovered that protection often comes from the most unexpected places. The quiet crop duster pilot flying over Montana wheat fields. The retired teacher who remembers emergency medical training. The former mechanic who understands complex systems that keep communities functioning. Heroes don't always wear uniforms or carry obvious credentials. Sometimes they wear clothes and carry coffee mugs, invisible until the moment when their hidden expertise becomes desperately needed. So now we ask you, have you ever known someone whose peaceful exterior suggested they had experience with much more demanding challenges? Someone who chose a simple life after mastering complex skills that most people couldn't imagine. Share their story in the comments below. Tell us about the hidden experts in your life, the ones who earned the right to choose peace but remained ready to defend it when called upon.